This is the Politically Speaking podcast, a candid conversation with the Show Me State's biggest political newsmakers.
I'm Jason Rosenbaum.
And I'm Joe Mannies.
That's Eric Greitens, Navy SEALs running for governor, and I'm really glad to be on with you, Jason and Joe.
I'm going to push back on these regulators.
I'm doing this for the people.
I was encouraged along the way, not just by my family, but by a lot of teachers and professors, and knew when I was in college that I would run for office someday.
We're very excited about the prospect of having some more free market solutions.
Even though after the conversation, I still might not agree.
We want our listeners to get a real sense of what drives these people.
They're actually people with a story to tell.
Hi, this is your host, Joe Mannies. I'm filling in for Jason and everybody else. I'm doing this solo today, and I'm very honored to have a really great guest.
Ann Wagner from Missouri's 2nd District. I'm honored to be here, too.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, the Congresswoman is taking time out of a really crazy schedule the last few days. As most of our listeners know, this week has been candidate filing week and also a bunch of other stuff going on in the news and on the legislative floors in Congress and in the state capitol. So first, Congresswoman, just a real quick thing on where your district is, just so our listeners know.
It's Missouri's 2nd Congressional District, which takes in about, I'll say, 2/3 of St. Louis County, about 1/3 of St. Charles County, and then a little bit of Jefferson County, which is basically the city of Arnold. Approximately 750,000 constituents in Missouri's 2nd Congressional District.
Okay, and we'll get right to the chase here. I know you've had a pretty big victory this week on one of the measures that you've been pushing for a long time. And in fairness, actually, this is something that Senator Claire McCaskill has been involved in the Senate, and actually Josh Hawley, the Missouri Attorney General, has been involved in the state. This has to do with sex trafficking.
It does.
So if you want to explain basically what your bill does, the fact that this version got through the House, this has some Senate amendments, that's where McCaskill's piece comes in. If you want to talk a bit about this.
It's landmark legislation when it comes to specifically online sex trafficking. The name of the bill is FOSTA, which is the Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act of 2017. I've been at this for 2 years. I've been fighting the good fight on human trafficking and sex trafficking since I've been in Congress now, on year 6. And this has been a labor of love, but a pretty heavy lift, because this is a mammoth piece of legislation that really goes to the heart of taking on these predatory websites like Backpage.com and others that are selling our women, our children, our young boys on the internet with impunity. So the FOSTA has a large criminal component, which is what I have worked very hard on, working with our prosecutors, our district attorneys, our 50 state attorneys general who have gotten behind this legislation. We give prosecutors every tool in the toolbox, both by using the sex trafficking statutes and the prostitution statutes in order to go after these websites, get prosecutions, convictions, put these predatory websites, the predators behind bars, or bring the websites down. And I hope, Joe, serve as a deterrent for others. So the Manhattan DA, who I worked with at length, said that this was transformational. So we've got the criminal component, and then we have the piece that we amended on, which was in my original bill 2 years ago, which provides civil remedies for our victims and our survivors. So this is really going to give these survivors some justice in their day in court. And then the big thing is we did what the courts have been asking for years that Congress does, which is to clarify congressional intent when it comes to the Communications Decency Act. This was a piece of legislation passed in 1996 and has been watered down and misused by Backpage.com and other. There are hundreds of these websites that are out there that are just nefarious and, as I said, exploiting the most vulnerable in our society. But they've asked for us to clarify it. They've been hiding behind the immunity clauses of the CDA now for years. And so we have, and we made it very clear that it is not Congress's intent for the internet to be a red light district. And if you're committing a crime offline, you can't commit it online. If it's a crime offline, it's a crime online too. Frankly, as sex trafficking has evolved over the last decade or more, we've seen it move from the streets to the internet. NCMEC, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, has said there's been an 846% increase in child exploitation of sex trafficking online. So this is important legislation that we've worked on in a bipartisan way. It's had some headwinds, though, certainly by big tech and others that are fighting it because there's big money behind this, Joe. There are people making hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars on the backs of our women and children and selling them online. So it has a big criminal component. It has the civil remedies in it, and then we have the clarification in the Communications Decency Act that ought to be able to be put to good use.
So in the criminal component, I mean, right now, I take it from what you're saying, there's virtually no, I mean, they're not necessarily breaking any laws by their advertising. Is that part of the problem?
Well, they've been hiding behind what they consider the immunities in the Communications Decency Act. And so we have clarified our intent there and then made sure that not only can prosecutors use our sex trafficking statutes, and we've strengthened those, but really created a new crime in the prostitution statutes that says that it is criminal, in fact, for the promotion or facilitation of prostitution and in reckless disregard of sex trafficking. So we lowered the mens rea of reckless disregard, which actually makes it easier for the prosecutors to go after these nefarious websites. So it's a very, as I said, landmark piece of legislation that's tough on crime, wonderful justice for our victims, and does finally clarify the Communications Decency Act that was passed back in 1996.
Now, so when will this go into effect? Assuming, from what you're saying, Mitch McConnell, head of the Senate, is saying there's going to be a vote the week of March 12th.
Week of March 12th, the leader in the Senate said that they will bring this to the Senate floor. And then real late-breaking news is that the White House endorsed the legislation by name, H.R. 1865, which is FOSTA, my piece of legislation, this afternoon. And so I think we're going to have this signed into law swiftly by the President of the United States.
So will it go into effect right away, or is there a waiting period?
I don't believe there's a waiting period. Most of the provisions of this will go into effect right away. There are also provisions at the state level that need to be put into place. And in fact, I've spoken very recently with our House leadership to make sure. I'm hoping that Missouri will be one of the very first states to have a companion piece of legislation at the state level so that the attorneys general and others can use that to also prosecute. You know, most of the prosecutions do happen at the state and local level. So it's important that we get these states on board. As I said, 50 state attorneys general have asked us to put this legislation forward. So I want to get it, once it's signed by the president, I want to get it as quickly to the Missouri State General Assembly as possible.
Now, you were in Jeff City just 2 days ago when you filed for office on Wednesday for re-election. So were you indicate that you were talking to House members, at least, or members of the General Assembly about doing something on this. Do you think they're going to act, or are they too busy with all this other stuff going on?
I think they'll act. I usually meet with House leadership. I didn't make it over to the Senate side. I did meet with a few senators, but I make it a routine visit when I go to file to sit down with our leadership and talk about legislation and issues that are important to me. And I specifically met with Speaker Richardson and Speaker Pro Tem Elijah Har about this legislation, and they're gung-ho and ready to get to work. And we may even, depending upon the timing in the Senate and when the president signs it into law, it might even be something that they could move on during this legislative session in the State House.
Now, while you're in Jeff City, in fact, I was in Jeff City this week too. We kind of crossed paths, but you got at least two active Democratic opponents in the 22nd in your district, in the 2nd district. Obviously, you're an incumbent. You've got a lot of connections. You've been successful raising money. Obviously, you would have an advantage in there, but still, this is rare. I mean, for the Democrats, your last two elections, you did not have as strong a candidates, or at least candidates who weren't able to tap into some money. I mean, the DCCC has already been sending out little missives about you, attacks, this and that. How do you see the climate this time as you're running for re-election differ or not from the last couple times?
Well, it's a tough climate. I will say that, and we are the only targeted congressional seat in the state. Missouri's 2nd congressional district is more of a swing district, given the fact that it takes in the suburban area of St. Louis County and some of the exurbs. I believe when I filed, there were maybe 4 or 5 Democrats that have now filed for office, but
Yes.
we always get them. In Missouri, it's a $100 filing fee. A lot of people file for office, and I intend on taking this election seriously. I take every election seriously, and work hard and earn the vote. This is a district that's personal for me. I'm born and raised here in the St. Louis metro area, raised my family of 3. My husband and I have been married for 31 years. We've worked, we've volunteered, we've done a lot in this community, and it's personal. This for me, Joe, is a calling, not a job, and I am here to serve the people of the 2nd District. It's an honor and a privilege, and I think that every candidate, the key to success is to focus on your constituents. And, I talk about the things that we do for my constituents back home, whether that's fighting for the NGA here, which is jobs, whether it's lifting our defense appropriations and making sure that Boeing line has got increased numbers of Growlers and Super Hornets, whether it's fighting for strong sex trafficking legislation. St. Louis, sadly, is in the top 20 on sex trafficking in our nation. So we do a lot with the VA. I have the privilege of having Jefferson Barracks in the district, a lot in terms of constituent services with a strong district office. So the key to any election and any candidate, I think, being elected in their district is how hard you work to deliver for the people that you represent. So you can't ever stop coming home. You can't ever stop. I always say I'm Ann Wagner of Ballwin, not of Washington and the Imperial City. I am much more at home here in the 2nd District and in my home of decades out in Ballwin, Missouri. So we're going to work hard. I take it seriously. It's a tough climate, and we are targeted by the DCCC. So I'll take nothing for granted.
Why do you think it's a tough climate?
Well, I think we're very polarized. I think we've seen that after the last presidential election. The left is energized. The right is energized. It'll be interesting to see, especially in an off presidential election cycle year, what the turnout is. I imagine that it will be stronger than it was in, let's say, 2016. So we're ready for that, and we're going to work and earn every vote there is in this district.
Now, last summer, you had announced that you were not going to entertain the idea of running for the U.S. Senate. I mean, for a long time, you had been touted as the possible opponent against Senator McCaskill this fall. Okay, now you've got several other candidates, but the most well-known is Attorney General Josh Hawley. But your name's been coming up again. I was at Lincoln Days a few weeks ago, and everyone was touting your name again, in part because there are some party activists who were concerned about Hawley's low fundraising numbers. I'm just interested in your take on, A, why you think you've been promoted again. Is there any way that you might change your mind before filing ends on March 27th so you can say here and now? and just sort of, because you used to be head of the state party and you were vice chair of the national party, so you know about this stuff.
I have. I've worked in this arena for a long time. I don't believe that Senator McCaskill represents our values in the state of Missouri, and I do hope that she is beaten in this next election cycle, and I'll work hard to make sure that happens. But I am firmly committed, once and for all, to Missouri's 2nd Congressional District. I had the privilege of filing this week. I did entertain a U.S. Senate bid, but felt that I could be most effective in passing the kind of legislation that I did with FOSTA and other measures in representing my hometown and Missouri's 2nd District. So I'm firmly committed to that.
Any suggestions for Hawley?
Yeah, this is, as I've said, a tough climate, and you've got to work and earn every vote in the state of Missouri. This is the show me state, and Claire McCaskill is formidable, absolutely, and she's raising a lot of money. So you've got to get out, you've got to have a good ground game. I think the key. I'm an old grassroots girl. I used to be a township committee woman before I was anything else at the most local, neighbor-to-neighbor level. And you've got to work it. You've got to have a good field staff and get out there in every community across this state and tell them what your vision is and your plan for the future and how you can make a difference in their lives and that of their families. And you've got to work hard and earn it.
Now, the fact that the DCCC is doing all these ads against you, or at least comments, emails, that sort of thing, you say it's targeted, which is obvious, but what does that say that they're targeting you? Is it to keep? One of my perceptions is I thought they wanted to keep you busy, so you weren't helping other Republicans elsewhere, which has happened sometimes in previous years. I mean, I'm being candid here.
Well, I'm a big team player, and I believe that if I work hard and do what I need to do to turn out the votes in the 2nd District, that we lift all boats. And one of the discussions that I had with my colleagues in the General Assembly, who I work very closely with, both in the Missouri House and Senate, is what I can do to help those state reps and those state senators that are in Missouri's 2nd District. So I will work hand in hand with them, whether it's out knocking doors, whether it's through helping them raise the resources that they need, campaign strategy. My staff is available on the political side to work with them. I've always been a party player and a team player here, so that will not change. And I think we'll have the resources to get our message out. And because we work so hard and in terms of taking these elections seriously, I do think that it is of benefit to the other campaigns too. They may be newer to the political process or to the campaign side of things. So whatever we can do to be of assistance, I will be there no matter what.
Well, while you're in Jeff City, I'm sure you heard a little bit about the elephant in the room, so to speak, there, which is this whole controversy surrounding the governor, who has been accused of taking a photograph of a partially nude woman with whom he was then having an affair without her consent. Now, this happened in 2015, before he actually had launched his campaign. He was thinking about it. He has acknowledged having the affair. He has denied any sort of illegal or nefarious activity. Now, that's kind of the backdrop of this. Some lawmakers have come out saying he needs to resign. Others are saying it's too soon. You haven't said much, if I'm accurate. I'm just curious in kind of how you see this and how this might affect Republicans going into November, or do you think his trial is now set for May 14th, or whether this is going to be something that's just going to wane as the months go?
Well, I've said from the very beginning that the allegations against the governor are very serious. I think the indictment is most disturbing and serious. I've asked for a full and swift investigation, and that is ongoing at this time. I do believe the governor is, like any citizen in the state of Missouri or beyond, should be allowed his due process and his day in court. However, I will say that I do believe that elected officials and those that serve with the public trust should be held to a higher standard. So I have full faith in our Missouri General Assembly and Speaker Richardson, who has also instigated an investigation. I think those investigations should go forward and in a non-political and a forthright and swift manner, so that this issue can be laid to rest.
Now, one of the things the governor has been attacking is Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner and her staff, accused him of playing politics. He's put out a couple missives trying to tie her to Democratic donor George Soros. Has really claimed that this is all a political game. He's accused her of being a prosecutor in search of a crime. When I was in Jeff City, there actually were some Republicans who said on the record they wish he'd cool that. Now, I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, but is there anything you want to say about that?
I believe in both investigations, and that they should be played out in an honest and truthful and full manner. Both the investigation by the circuit attorney and the investigation that has now been initiated by the Missouri House of Representatives and Speaker Richardson. So I'm in favor of both playing out. I think they're important. I think, as I said, the governor should have his due process and his day in court, and he shall. But these are serious, serious allegations, and they need to be fully investigated.
Now, as far as Congress goes, now that your bill may be pretty much on its way to the president's desk within the month, are there other things that you hope to focus on or hope that the Congress focuses on in the next few months before it really starts going into a hiatus, more or less, over the summer?
Well, we got our budget deal several weeks ago, and now we are going to be working with the appropriators and passing our full budget and funding that will happen at the end of March. So I've been fighting a lot for our defense dollars and to make sure that we as a country are safe and secure, and that our readiness is intact, and putting the kind of money that we need into the Defense Department, whether that's the VA, whether that's giving our soldiers a much-needed pay raise, whether that's more Super Hornets and Growlers on the assembly line, or Navy carriers, whatever it is. We need to make sure that our war fighters are ready to keep us safe and secure. So we're going to be working on our funding bills. I serve on the Financial Services Committee, and the Senate has finally decided to move a package of regulatory reform issues when it comes to community banks and other financial service sector agencies that we will be taking up in the House. We passed our version, the Choice Act, months and months ago, but they are finally going to move on a package, and I'm thrilled to be able to move that forward. One of the big successes, I think, of this administration has been to take the blanket off of businesses and enterprises and companies and individuals, restore their freedoms, and have the kind of regulatory reform that we've seen that has really, I think, been a part of jump-starting this economy. We passed a historic tax Cuts and Jobs Growth Act that is beginning to see the benefits now, not just in growth in our GDP, but in real people's paychecks and pocketbooks. So we're thrilled that consumer confidence has grown, that small businesses are expanding and buying the equipment, growing their warehouses, their workforces. It's not just about giving bonuses, which are terrific. It's about increasing their pay and growing their businesses. So whether it's regulatory reform, the tax reform package that we had go through, certainly the defense dollars are why ISIS is on the run. And we're going to be working on a number of these issues. I'm also on Foreign Affairs, so and on the Asia Pacific Subcommittee, and have been very involved in our dealings with the North Koreans and in the Korean Peninsula. I have visited the region in South Korea, in China, in Japan, and have been very involved in the work on foreign affairs. So there is plenty on our plate and a lot more to be done. I do hope that we're going to be able to take action on this legislation. We've got a number of pieces that have passed through the House. The Senate moves way too slow for my liking, but I do hope that they're going to pass my FOSTA bill and the Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act, and that they'll be able to get to some of the other items that we have moved to their chamber and can hopefully make it to the president's desk.
Now, I thought you had kind of mixed feelings about the budget deal. How would you classify that right now? I know there's still talk about the deficit, the debt, which is the two things. What do you tell people, fiscal conservatives, who ask you about all that?
Well, I care deeply about the debt and what we're passing along to our children, and now I'm a brand new first-time grandma, and what my little granddaughter Isabella Marie may have to deal with. So these are important issues, and one of the only reasons that supported some of these increases is that I do believe that we are going to see real growth in our gross domestic product, and that will be a real catalyst to going after our debt and deficit. So I believe in the dynamic scoring process, and I'm hopeful that whether it's through regulatory relief that has allowed this economic boom and growth and consumer confidence and manufacturing expansion, or whether it's through the tax cut plan that our GDP will grow, our economy will grow. Real people are going to have more discretionary dollars of their own money that they'll be able to spend, and that will be a real driver. Just 1 point increase in the GDP really does an amazing amount of difference to our debt and deficits. But I continue to be a budget hawk and have real concerns about our spending going forward.
Now, before the election, you had mixed feelings about Trump, who was then the Republican nominee. And you had taken some heat for that, near the election. And now, since then, how would you characterize your relationship with the president, and what's your general assessment on how he's doing?
It's been very positive from the very beginning. In fact, President Trump, probably just 2 weeks after he took office and inauguration last year, he brought me into the Oval Office and signed an executive order on a signature piece of financial services legislation that I cared deeply about, and that was really about helping low and income investors save money. We have a savings crisis in our country, and this was a major piece of legislation that I had been championing for some period of time. I've been in the White House many times talking about different policy issues. We've got a good, cordial working relationship. I support the administration. I think we've been one unified Republican government moving forward, and have certainly been able to get a lot accomplished, whether it is in the regulatory realm, whether it's in tax reform, putting an end to the individual mandate when it comes to health care, which I think is something that allows more freedom and choice by individuals, and doesn't tell the government, you don't have the government telling you have to purchase health care, you're going to be fined and penalized. I've had a lot of discussions. He's been to Missouri a couple of times. I've flown on Air Force One. I'm my own person, Joe, and I will tell you that I take a principled stand on issues. If I disagree with the president or anyone else, I certainly will voice that. But I look for ways that we can work together, especially when it comes to these important policy issues. And I'm thrilled that today in the White House briefing room, Sarah Sanders talked about H.R. 1865 and endorsed this legislation being signed by the president. So I cannot wait to visit with him. And Ivanka Trump, this has been also a big issue for her. She tweeted out the day we were passing the legislation. And so we're all working well together, I think.
Okay, well, I really appreciate your time. I know things are real crazy for you these last few days and ongoing. So thanks so much for coming in. You can reach me on Twitter at jmannies. That's JMANNIES. How can you reach the Congresswoman?
At AnnWagner.com or at Rep. Ann Wagner.
Okay. And so anyway, next time, Jason won't be here for the next time, but he'll be here for the next show, let's say in 2.
And congratulations to Jason and his growing family.
Yes, I'm very happy for him. So as a grandmother, I totally get it. So anyway, so till next time, so long.
The land, the